Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Kohl Center here in Madison, Wisconsin, a place that obviously, as everybody knows, has not been friendly to the Indiana basketball program for many years now, a couple decades. Indiana hasn't won here since 1998, the year the building opened. They didn't get a win tonight. Fell behind 26-4, ended up losing 76-64. Some things to get into about the game, but one of the things that's obviously a major topic of conversation, and is really impossible to ignore at this point, is where Indiana is as a program this season. Made a couple notes to make sure I get some of these numbers right. Uh, 28 double-figure losses during Mike Woodson's tenure. They are now 22 games below 500 in Quad 1 games. 0 wins over ranked teams without Trace Jackson Davis. They're sitting there this year at 2-9 in Quad 1 games with one of the highest NIL payrolls in the country. So obviously Indiana goes here moving toward the middle part of February. 8 games left in the schedule. With a lot of things staring them in the face. They're ranked in the 60s in the net. They got to make up ground just to make the NCAA tournament. So this was just another game that caused more questions to arise for the Indiana basketball program. I guess, Trevor, your thoughts on kind of the season, sort of things you see that happen, things you see that maybe sort of led to this, and just sort of, your thoughts on some of the problems that Indiana had this season that puts them where they are here heading into mid-February.
Well, I think the beginning of the game sums up a lot of those problems. Wisconsin's a great three-point shooting team. They're one of the best in the country. They take a lot of threes and they make a lot of threes. They have pretty much everybody they put on the floor is a capable three-point shooter. But then IU comes out and lets them get in rhythm, clean three-point attempts, one after another. They make, 5 in the first 4 minutes of the game to really knock IU on their heels and really take them out of the game right from the start. And to allow a team to do exactly what they want to do and play to their strength right from the tip is unacceptable for a high major team. And this is what Indiana does time after time. They allow the opponent to play to their strengths and they don't take it away. And we saw that again tonight as, Wisconsin makes 12 threes on the night, 9 in the first half. And, IU is struggling to keep its head above water for most of the game. They make it an 11-point game early in the second half, but Wisconsin responds and makes it, 22 again. So I think tonight really just showed those recurring themes of IU allowing their opponent to do what they want and not taking it away. And I think that will be the biggest detriment to this team and their NCAA tournament hopes.
Yeah, and like you said, it's something we've seen now for multiple years. Certainly all of this year. It really goes back to the Bahamas. We're there. Everybody has a pretty good idea how Louisville wants to play. You look at how they played a couple games going in, and you can look at how Pat Kelsey's teams have played. What they do? They went out there, did exactly what everybody thought they were going to do, and IU had very little resistance. You can look at other games where, a couple years ago, everybody knew Penn State really let's spread the floor and take threes. What's IU let them do? Spread the floor and take threes. So, yeah, that's really certainly been a story of the season and the last couple of seasons for Indiana. Not too sure exactly how much to dissect from this game. I think that the start was the game for the most part. Like you said, Wisconsin had a stretch there. I think they only made like 1 of 9 shots or something. They fell into a funk. Indiana gets within 12, then all of a sudden it's back up to 20, 22. It was never in doubt who was going to win this game after the first 4 or 5 minutes. I think Wisconsin was 7 of 8 from 3 in like the first 6, 7 minutes. So you're making a 3 per minute to start the game, and that really changed a lot. And then obviously after the game, Mike Woodson said Malik and Mallow were terrible. Okay. When asked kind of why this season has slipped, I kind of talked about, I don't know. And that's kind of concerning, certainly, at this point of any season. What other things from this game did you see that sort of you look at? And there are 8 games left, okay? Are there fixable issues, or is IU kind of what they are right now?
Well, another kind of big picture, season-long issue is IU doesn't build game to game. Right? We saw it early in the non-conference season against Sam Houston State. They that's kind of when they started to spread the floor, really open up the lane, and get Miles Rice downhill. And then you don't see that again for 2 or 3 more games later. They finally start doing some of those things again. Against Purdue, IU has great success in that second half, driving to the paint. Trey Galloway, McKenzie, and Baco were able to get to the paint and score because Purdue does not have rim protectors. They should have been able to repeat that tonight against Wisconsin, but early on, the only person getting into the lane was Miles Rice, and he was pulled pretty early, and then Reed started, and he would get into the lane after that. But Indiana tried to just pound it into Umar Ballo, and that's not how you take advantage of Wisconsin. Wisconsin starts 2 7-footers, but they don't have the most strength or anybody challenging at the rim. So if you can drive and attack from there, you get opportunities. Like Michigan, Illinois, Marquette, they were able to take advantage of that by spreading the floor, have your guards attack, and play from there. IU had success when they did that. You saw Trey Galloway do it a few times, saw Miles Rice get into the lane or draw fouls. I really thought McKenzie and Baco should have looked to drive and penetrate more from the start, but instead their priority was pound the ball into Ballo and see what he can do, and it led to nothing. And that's just one of those things. Coming off the Purdue game, you should have been able to build off of something to use in this one, and it didn't happen.
That's a really good point. There hasn't been a lot that Indiana has done well in a game, added to it the next game, added even more game 3, game 4, moving forward. There just hasn't been a lot building that you've seen from this basketball team. Certainly, Wisconsin's had their number, but this was a game where I thought it was kind of befuddling, to go to your point, like why you wanted to pound it into Ballo. I didn't really think that made a ton of sense. And there are things that they did well against Purdue that messed up at the end, but they had some long stretches against Purdue where they figured out what worked and kept going to it. And tonight against Wisconsin, you kind of looked at it and went, what are you doing? Both offensively and defensively. I thought both sides of the ball were certainly a little bit of a concern.
I was kind of going back big picture. A lot of the discussion on the Peegs.com message board this week has kind of been about where IU kind of turns, if they actually have a chance of making the NCAA tournament. If they do squeak in, this might put them back, those kind of conversations. But nobody expected IU to win this game. So that doesn't really change that conversation about IU being able to slip into the NCAA tournament despite not having a great resume. They still have opportunities on the schedule. Everybody pretty much counted this as a loss going in. Obviously, the way they lost leaves a very bad taste in their mouth and the fans' taste in their mouth. But on paper, IU did not expect to win this game. It doesn't change their NCAA tournament hopes. They're still hanging by a thread. But if they somehow beat Michigan at home, beat Purdue at home, steal a couple on the road, Washington, Oregon, something like that, they are back in the NCAA tournament picture despite not being a very good team.
Right. And that's just the math of it. I mean, the contract says you got to put 68 teams in the NCAA tournament. You can't sit there and go, well, hey, I only think there's only 57 teams deserving this year. We're going to go with 57. You got to put 68 teams in. And you look across college basketball, there's some really good teams. There's some very solid teams. You talk about, okay, who's going to be teams 40 through 68? There's going to be some mediocre basketball teams. They got 1 or 2 really quality wins that is going to change their analytics just enough by a line, 2 lines, something like that, to make the NCAA tournament. And I understand IU fans are probably sitting there going right now, like, what are you guys talking about? This team in the NCAA tournament? We're talking about the math. We're talking about the analytics. And we're talking about 68 teams got to get picked. You got to put 68 in. But I agree with your point. That doesn't change the big picture conversation of where IU is as a basketball team. I don't think any of that changes much of anything at all. And obviously there's 8 games left to play. Excuse me. We'll see what happens. But I don't think the big picture changed a lot after tonight. IU was 60s in the 60s in the net coming in. They're going to be in the 60s in the net tomorrow morning. Maybe when you're watching this, Bart Torvik had them, I think, coming in tonight. What was it, 8.8% to make the incident? Like 8.8%. That's not going to change a lot. But, these really quality teams that they play, you pull 2 upsets, and then all of a sudden you're on the bubble and things can get kind of funky, kind of wonky. Last couple games going into the Big Ten tournament. But as far as this performance, not a good one. Adds to the list of performances this year. Excuse me, that obviously were not very good. We'll wrap it up from here at the Kohl Center. For Trevor Andershock, I'm Jeff Rabjohns for Peegs.com.